Our massive severe weather system that's been ravaging the US the past couple of days and has brought some pretty catastrophic impacts looks like it's going to have a last breath out here in the southeast. Luckily, this is just going to be a somewhat weak line, bringing some damaging winds. Of course, it's not going to be that weak because we are going to expect to see damaging winds out of it, but this isn't going to be anything like we've seen the past couple of days. And I do think there's actually going to be a solid chance of seeing a couple of spin up tornadoes in this line, specifically in these areas. I don't think our hail risk is going to be anything to worry about, though, luckily. So this is what we're dealing with right now. It looks like this line is going to continue all the way through the very early morning hours, with the potential of severe hazards really being limited to this more southern half of our line. That's where the best ingredients are going to be, and this is going to continue probably all about from 12 in the morning all the way up to sunrise, where it looks like the closer we get to sunrise, the more intense our impacts are going to start to get. Mostly, this is from a cold front. This is also synoptically backed. So we have 700 millibar flow and 500 millibar flow really going right into this thing, helping to organize these storms and just have better atmospheric kinematics for them to produce those hazards of severe weather. So probably about 2 hours before sunrise, around 6 in the morning, is when we could see another peak in our line. It looks like it's mostly going to be concentrated to the southernmost portion of our line for those strongest impacts, but really all the way up through it, there's going to be a solid chance of seeing some damaging winds at this time. Luckily, this is going to be mostly a morning threat in our southern sector. It looks like probably by around 9 or 10 in the morning, a lot of these storms are going to be fizzling out, and we can really see a big change in our line and how disorganized it is here rather than a couple earlier hours, like right here, where it's a very sharp line, probably producing damaging winds at that point. So probably around 10, most likely definitely by 11, we're going to see that storm fizzle out entirely, and we're actually going to see a shift in the area with the most activity. We're going to start to look up here towards the Carolinas, where we're actually going to have some better thermodynamics and instability in play, and that would last all the way until these storms exit out into the Atlantic, probably around 3 p.m. at the latest. So taking a deeper look at our ingredients, first and foremost is going to be our cold front. This is going to be the main initiator and the thing that's really keeping these storms rolling throughout the day. And this is a fairly sharp cold front. You can see how quickly we go from 40s to mid 60s. So definitely a sharp and strong cold front that's actually moving pretty fast as well. All those things coupled together are really the key ingredients you look for in these strong damaging lines. Now for our moisture, it's going to be pretty abundantly moist out here, with those highest moisture contents concentrated in this portion. Probably if you're south of central Georgia, that's going to be where, in my opinion, the strongest parts of line are going to be in the morning. But as we go into the day, moisture is going to stay pretty good, with maybe a really solid amount of moisture really throughout our line. But also we can see definitely enough moisture to get things done up here in our Carolinas sector. Moving over to our Cape and shear, we can see just how parallel these shear vectors are. That's why we're seeing a storm mode like this. That's just very linear. And then also another thing to notice, I want to look at the areas where Cape is going to be concentrated. One is going to be down here in the southernmost portion of our risk. Then as we go throughout the day, you're going to notice up here in the Carolinas, we're going to kind of see a secondary maximum of Cape up there, with values climbing probably close to 1,000 as we go later into the afternoon. But everywhere else, the Cape dies off pretty quickly. Another thing is going to be our 3 Cape, really all the way across our line. We're seeing abundant amounts of 3 Cape, with of course a very common theme here. We're seeing the highest concentrations in the southernmost sector and up here in the Carolinas. And then the last thing is going to be our troughs. We're dealing with a pretty strong 500 millibar trough. It looks like it's going to deepen quite a bit as a wave moves through in the morning. That's no coincidence with when we're going to start to see things pick up a little bit more again. And then also our 700 millibar flow. Once again, we see things deepen in the morning hours right there as that wave comes through. Definitely not a coincidence. And 700 millibar flow is going to be really solid for just general severe weather, then also that conditional threat of tornadoes, which I definitely think does exist. Now we're going to move over to our weather soundings generated by the NAM, and this is from our southernmost sector in the morning, and I pretty much agree with what it's showing. It looks like we're going to have about 1,000 cape, 123 cape, and then our thermodynamic profile. I wish we had a little bit deeper of a moist layer to see some stronger effects from these storms. These storms are going to be surface based. We see a hint of turning and a little bit of curvature in our photograph. All in all, these are not bad thermodynamics at all. We're seeing 70 over 69, then a solid amount of dry air loft, which could actually be one of the reasons why our storms kind of fall apart later in the day. But at least in these morning hours, it's actually going to help increase the strength of these downdrafts. The key thing with all these storms is going to be how high the effective shear or organizing shear is going to be today. We're seeing a 61 effective shear. That's going to be 61 knots. We're looking for 40 knots for a really good chance of organized storms, and we have 20 above that. So no doubt that these storms will at least be able to stay organized in the morning. And then looking at our lower level kinematics, we're seeing probably 220 SRH and then 33 knots of effective inflow. Then once again, that curvature in our photograph. I see no reason why tornadoes are not going to be possible, if not likely, in the southern sector tomorrow morning. Now we're going to move up to our Carolinas sector. And a couple of things to note here. First and foremost, our thermodynamic profile is looking really good. There is no capping in here at all, and our lapse rates are really solid all the way up. 78 over 65, definitely helping with the cape. I think the NAM is overdoing this cape quite a bit, but I definitely think we can expect to see somewhere around 1,000 to 1,200 cape, and this is going to be coupled with a 3 cape of 102. These storms are going to be surface-based, and we're seeing a effective shear once again, 62 knots. I have no doubt that these storms are going to be able to be organized and at least produce some sort of strong winds, if not damaging, with these thermos. And shear also in the lower levels, we're seeing 40 knots of the low shear and 120 SRH. That's probably enough to warrant a conditional tornado threat. We're also seeing a little bit of baby curvature in the lower levels, and things start to get a little wonky. That could limit things a little bit with this M-shaped photograph, but we're not really looking at big supercells here sustaining their updrafts. We're looking for spin-ups with a QOCS, and I definitely think this is going to be enough to warrant a conditional threat. Coupled with these thermos, also, last but not least, we have some turning in our winds. And at 700 millibars, the flow is just outright insane, which is a pretty good indicator of tornado potential. So I definitely think there is going to be a conditional tornado threat in our North Carolina sector as we go into late morning, early afternoon. Then also a tornado threat down in our southern sector, and then a damaging wind threat all the way through. I think that hail threat is going to be pretty small. This is a better profile for hail, though, up here in our North Carolina sector. Decent lapse rates, big bit of mixed layer cape, and then also on top of that, our effective shear is super high, mainly going to be limited by that linear storm mode, though. So all in all, I wouldn't be surprised if the Storm Prediction Center actually just gave this entire line a conditional tornado risk, as pretty much all the way up, there's at least significant tornado parameters of 1, with, of course, those maximizing out in those 2 areas that I'm highlighting. But definitely, this line is going to be something to watch.